Hello, everyone. They asked me to speak English, but I see most of you speak Russian here, right? And Belarusian, I hope. So, if you want to, I can switch to Russian. So, you can choose. Anyone? Okay, I'll stop in the middle of my presentation and then ask you again, because if you won't be understanding what I'm speaking about, so that would be better if you really understand it in Russian. Okay, so EnCata, what is EnCata? EnCata is an engineering catalyst. It's a design engineering consultancy and manufacturing company. It's essentially a service company. And we are consulting a Hackspace Capital, which is a venture seed fund that has different solutions for ecosystem and invests itself in the startups. So my aim here is to explain you how to commercialize your scientific research, how to commercialize your ideas that you perhaps have. And I should say a few words about myself. So I am a Belarusian State University graduate. I graduated in 2006 from chemistry department, and I did my master's also there. I graduated in 2007, and then I went to Warwick University. Warwick University is an English university, and there I did my postgraduate research study in nanotechnology. So I have two alma maters, essentially. But after that, when I graduated from Warwick with PhD degree, I went to work to Leiden University in the Netherlands, and then I went back to Belarus, worked in management consultants, and then I went to work in Moscow in equity fund. And after that, I went back to Belarus, and from there we started doing what is called EnCata today. So, all right. Slide? No magic? It doesn't work? I should point in a different direction. Where's the point, Ocean? Okay, thank you. Okay. These are 3 points for success in technology business. So you've got to have technology, you've got to have team, and you have to power it fueled by investment. So these are 3 stones that every technology or hardware startup rests upon. So I'll expand on every point, so maybe you'll get more understanding what it's all about. Slide. Yeah. I want to say, my point is, we now are witnessing the renaissance in hardware industry. And this is all due to 3 facts. We've got very cheap prototyping. So prototyping or proof of concept. So you can demonstrate your technology. You can demonstrate it with electronics which are available on the market, and you can play around with it. That's Arduino Raspberry. Anyone heard about these things? Anyone used in your own research or? No one? Yeah. I see one hand. Good. Another thing is 3D printing. So additive technologies have cut the time we all need to do a prototype. So back in days, you had to do the CNC milling or maybe use manpower work to create something look nice and to test your user experience. So it's 3D printers now extremely cheap. So you can buy one for $1,000 or so, and pretty much everyone can afford them now. And then the component base, it's way cheaper than it used to be. So buying some cheap from local shops, order them from China, is extremely cheap now, so you can experiment yourself. And that's all helps to design, create, and prototypes. But it's just the beginning of the story. So here's a big slide about technology readiness level. So your technology, when you develop anything in the lab, it can be split into 9 levels of technology readiness level. So we start from idea and we end up to around 9, which is market sales. So you're selling there. But you have to go all the way through to deliver technology to the market. So first you do the idea, you get the idea. Secondly, you think about this idea, maybe you publish peer-reviewed articles in scientific journals. Then you do the lab research and carry on doing your publications. And then you have to demonstrate a proof of concept prototype. So all this Arduino-based electronics, all the components, but this is all to help you to make the proof of concept, lab-scale prototype. Without it, your technology is nothing. It's just your idea, basically. So we in EnCata, we start working only with the startups that made up their own proof of concept prototypes. So proof of concept prototype is something, I don't know, made of, well, you solder it all together, it's all like wires, maybe it's an Arduino running, and it's very simple software that powers it, and maybe something you have cut in the garage of your father, but it's still a proof of concept and you have to demonstrate it, because before that, the research can be endless and maybe you will never get your technology delivered. So from there we started working with EnCata. So we do the engineering design. So we develop engineering prototypes in EnCata, and that takes a lot of time and effort. It's quite an expensive and a long experience. So your first prototype components, maybe some of them are not available in the market. Then you make a prototype, intermediate prototype, and then you have to demonstrate your prototype working. So that's going up the ladder. And then the final prototype, TRL8, when you can start batch production for, you can manufacture like 5, 10, 100 prototypes. And from there you can start your sales. And maybe TRL9 when you have a running company that, you know, any company that manufactures something, they are at TRL9. So most of you, I hope, who are sitting here, they have either idea or maybe they have done something in the lab. So you have done something in the lab, you can come to us and speak and discuss it. Maybe that's some sort of technology that you have can be brought up, developed, and brought to the market. But it's a long way. Let me continue. So any startups requires technology expert. If you're not an expert in anything, if you're an expert like in selling something, this is not where startup starts. Technology starts, because you have to know the technology and you have to have design engineers and you have to have manufacturing capabilities to do that. So we're in EnCata to do the manufacturing and design. So it can be powered by some money, which is also very important. But without you, without technology expert or someone who knows the technology inside out in the lab, it is not possible to do. So EnCata is just to help, to catalyze your research and do the technology transfer. This is the slide from Bolt. Anyone knows about Bolt? Raise your hand. No. So Bolt is an American MIT-based, Boston-based accelerator and a VC fund that does exactly what we do, but with the difference that they sit in Boston at the moment and they have like three or four engineers, but we have much more than that. So they do annual or quarterly reports on hardware business and hardware investment. So they claim in the last year it's about $6 billion invested in hardware startups. We're talking about gadgets and other simple technologies. So you can clearly see there is a growth in investment. Maybe it's plateauing here, but still it's quite a bit of money. So I can say there's a growing interest, and that growing interest is fueled by the availability of prototyping facilities around the world. So, but you have to think strategically. So what do you want to achieve with your particular startups? Anybody, I think most of the people really excited to get rich at some point in time, but you have to understand it's a very long way. And there are 3 strategies where you can become rich or achieve your goal, maybe make your company. So first one is to do the exit, sell your technology to some company. Another one is to do an IPO, initial public offering, on a stock exchange. And then the last one is a dividend model, where you build a company that generates some profit and you can pay yourself dividends from this profit. So I'm saying that making up a technology after a lab will take you like 2 to 5 years. It's probably the easiest to do. Although there's no easy way in hardware still. So IPO takes about 10 years. So on average, every startup, any unicorn you know nowadays, like Facebook, Google, it took them 10 years to reach the IPO stage, and it's a very long way. So you have to build your business, you have to find investment to invest it, and that's not as easy as to sell something from the very beginning. And dividends model is pretty much similar, but maybe you have a smaller market, maybe you have a I don't know, a simpler technology, or maybe you're not interested in raising investment, and you can reinvest the money that you earn, and from there maybe you can reach the point where you can pay these dividends. But very few companies do that. Maybe the companies do in commodities business, I don't know, oil and gas, mining, they can really afford that. And it's kind of becoming an old-fashioned way. So only large corporations pay the dividends, and you have to take your time to grow your business to that point. I can stop again. Do you understand my English? Should I switch to Russian? So okay, raise your hands who want me to switch to Russian language. Raise the hands who want me to speak English. Okay, good. English one. Let's carry on. Anyone know about GoPro, Fitbit? Raise hands. GoPro? Yeah. So GoPro is a camera for activity where I don't know, you run your motorcycle and do the sky jumping or whatever. And a Fitbit is a gadget that you put on your hand wrist. These two gadgets, they all offer one business solution. It's a one-off sale. They've made a nice gadget and they sold it once. And I'm pretty sure that most of you will not buy another GoPro camera if you have already one. And most of you in the next, I don't know, if you have a Fitbit, for example, you won't buy any new Fitbit in the next, I don't know, 5 or 10 years. So this is the price per share, because these two companies went on IPO. And you see in 2015, they were valued very much at like almost $100 per share. But well, the number is kind of insignificant. So I want you to understand the difference. So nowadays, if you go on a stock exchange, so you'll see shares are not as much valued as they were before. And why that happened? Because the market understood that if you're selling something just once, you're not going to earn a lot of money. So there's a shift in, there's a change, a big change. So now hardware gadgets or hardware anything or any technology have to be powered by the cash flow that you generate as a service. For example, if you had a Fitbit, for example, and if there was an application running, so you could purchase some service in Fitbit. Maybe you can purchase some, I don't know, maybe some sport nutrition, right? Or maybe some, I don't know, some specific thing through the Fitbit application. It doesn't work that way for these companies. So you have to understand that for hardware business nowadays, no one is going to invest into you if you have a very nice gadget, but if you can sell it only once, no one will be going to be interested in investing in you. If you have a very deep technology, investors are very excited about it, because deep technology or something very specific no one has, it's a competitive advantage. So it costs a lot itself when delivered to the market. It doesn't cost anything if it's still in the lab. It will cost a lot if you get it working and demonstrate and maybe do the company that start the first sales. So, but again, back to team. There are many obstacles that will be waiting for you. So a friend of mine in London, he's done a master's degree research, and he said about 50% of the startups, from his experience, from his research, are failing because people within the startups cannot work out the way to communicate. Maybe the startups having two CEOs in one team. Maybe the startups, I don't know, holding a board of director meetings. Maybe they hate each other, but about 50% of the startups really fail not because of technology, not because of lack of investment, but because of the people. So you have to understand that. You have to choose the partners, you have to choose the people you're going to work with as carefully as you would probably choose your life partner. I mean, the wife or husband, because you're going to spend 10 years with that person. And I don't want you to spend this 10 or more years with a person you essentially hate. And I know already a couple of stories in Belarus where people made a startup, made it very successful, but because of the problems within the team, they weren't able to sell the startup at very high money. So further, so if you're building something that's gonna get to IPO or something where you're growing your own business, so you have to have expert or technology expert, and I hope this is you guys from labs of physics and chemistry and biological department, where you have to tell what to do to design engineering team. I'm showing us a picture that this team is EnCata team, but it can be pretty much any designer engineers, any electronics engineers. But then developing the technology itself is just nothing, because you have to then sell it, you have to do the proper marketing, you have to have investment to do that, and you have to have a nice, proper CEO who can execute that. And I think in Belarus is the weakest point. So there is no good administrators, there's no good CEOs here, the entrepreneurs and CEOs who can run this business. That's why making some great company on international level from Belarus, it's at the moment, it's quite hard. And I believe there are some guys of your generation, because in my generation there are fewer than I hope in yours. So you have to understand that. Money is easy to be brought with. So engineering is not very hard, because we as Belarus have some talented engineers here, but it's going to be good execution. But if you are working with a technology startup, right? So yeah, let me compare. So maybe you don't need a CEO. Maybe you don't need a CEO, maybe you don't need marketing and sales. It's all about developing the technology. You've developed that technology, demonstrated it, and from there, the technology can be sold. It's a completely different strategy. So back to my slide, for example, when I was explaining there are 3 ways for exit strategy. Exit and sell technology, build a company and go for IPO, or maybe build a dividend-based company. So, a little bit of explanation what EnCata does. So we have different capabilities for engineering, so electronic development, design engineering, industrial design, industrial prototyping, mold manufacturing, and even R&D facilities for computer simulations. So that's just to tell that with all these facilities, we are ready to help startups to develop their technologies and their startups. And let me just show you a nice picture. So remember this technology readiness level. So if you cut everything, so you'll see there's every step is about 50% probability. You'll pass the technology readiness, or you will not pass to the next level. So the probability, if you multiply that and put a power 8, you'll get very low chances to get to the market. And this is about the number historically, how much startups fail. So basically 99% of startups fail, or something around this. So the goal of EnCata really is to help to jump from lab prototype, proof of concept, jump to something you can start selling on the market. And it's still there's one step closer to the market. The last one is really need to be powered by quite a bit of investment. So let me explain. I'm talking about investment, right? And I'm talking that there's lots of money have to be involved in that. So for example, if you just made a just very simple product, you've designed it yourself and it's all working, you made it with a 3D printer. For nowadays, if you want to deliver that simple product, say cubic of Eric Rubik, you know that. So, for example, if you want to deliver it on international market, you need about $500,000 to be invested in just manufacturing this cubic, in marketing, sales, logistics. So $500,000. Just think about it. It's not as maybe it's incomparable to IT startup. So IT startup, you can maybe start your sales from, I don't know, from very little investment. You can demonstrate that you've created a product and you can start selling it online. Whereas for any hardware thing, very simple, as I said, for example, as this gadget or nice tool, it will take you quite a bit of money to deliver to the market. That's why hardware is very different. But we have developed a route to overcome it. So if we do a development in EnCata or you do it yourself, there's a Kickstarter available. So Kickstarter, you can go and test the market. In a Kickstarter, you can really see whether your gadget is liked by someone, if someone wants to pre-order it. And from there, we provide some investment because there's still a lot of money involved in that. So again, as I said, it's going to be logistics, going to be sales, going to be lots of marketing, and it's all on international level. That's a huge amount of money. And from there, maybe if you start growing, we need to find a further investment, because if you want to, for example, if you opened on the American market, if you gonna go to Europe and you expand yourself and expand your market and sales activity, that costs a lot. So still remember that you have to keep manufacturing in China, and maybe, well, the turnaround of money in the hardware startups is about 6 months. It's 6 months from where you produced till it got to the final customer, and someone has to still finance that. So we understand all these issues. That's why for the startups that have some idea, we provide hackerspace environment where startups or Fab Lab, where people can manufacture the proof of concept prototype. We offer an acceleration program, and we all offer for the startups that we're working with a mentoring scheme. The mentoring scheme is not something where you ran on the phone once and then you forgot about existence. No, we keep working very closely with our startups, and while doing so, we continue in development, and that's called the pre-seed stage. And from there, we go to Kickstarter phase, and if it's proved to be successful, we do the pre-manufacturing where you prepare the mass production, and we do together the market entry, and from there, of course, it's not the end of the story. Maybe the startup would fail at this stage, maybe it would fail here, it would fail at market entry. We don't know that, but still, we consider ourselves as partners for hardware startups, and we help to grow and go for international arena. If we speak about technology startups, some deep technology, when we have developed together a technology with the startups, there's probably the easiest way is to go and make the sale for the large corporation. Maybe it's an easier thing, but again, the technologies that I have seen in Belarus, they're not as easy. You've got to understand physics, you've got to understand mathematics, you have to understand chemistry, you have to understand biology, and then make a product that will fit the need of a large corporation who would need perhaps to buy this technology. Slide. So we have two funds for that. So one fund is designated for gadgets. It's the size, about $20 million. And we're raising now another fund for technologies. It will be worth about $100 million. And we have only one rule for this. We have to start working in EnCata with a startup. We have to understand whether the team is good, whether the technology can be brought further. And we encourage you to come and say, hey, I've got this technology, what do you think of it? And we at least, if we won't be able to help, at least we can give advice where to go. Maybe we know some people who will help with your idea, with your technology. But if you have a really nice idea and we like it, we can give you a space in our hackerspace, the Fab Lab. That's in Minsk. So you can start developing the device yourself. Oh, my favorite one. So do's and don'ts for startups. So first about the investors. So you have to understand what the investors are thinking about your startup. So investors do not invest in technology. Very few investors, maybe only in the States, can invest in technology. Some investors, they invest money in batch production. So batch production, as I told you, is quite an expensive. And in Belarus, I don't know anyone who would invest in that apart from us. That really takes a lot of money. Or someone who thinks it's not a lot of money, they'll find out how much it costs really. And but most of the investors that really would like to invest where you have created a company, it has started sales, and they see the traction, they see the startup is growing, they see the product, they like it, and then they invest into expansion. So in Belarus, you can hardly find this money. So this money can be found only in Europe or in the States, maybe in China. So these are, you have to overcome this. And another don'ts. The problems, the typical problems I wanted you to know. So if your startup has too many founders, that tells me there is maybe a problem. Because, and especially, but maybe not the number is the problem. The problem would be when you sit around on a table, on a round table, and speak endlessly about what to do, and there is no one man who takes the executive decision. That's very important. That rings the bell. So another one is some startups are really coming and say, hey, I want to manufacture something, and I'll be cheaper than, I don't know, Apple does. It will be cheaper than Chinese do. You do not know yet, perhaps, that you cannot make something cheaper than they do it in China. There's no way. I don't know. It's pure magic how they can really make things inexpensive. Maybe your technology will be about making something less expensive, but it's in terms of manufacturing, it is not possible, I think. There's another mistake that startups do. They put all the efforts to search for investors, and they do it for years and years and years without developing or trying to develop their own prototype. And that's typical, very typical, and it's very pity because the startup should probably focus more on technology development, lab research, rather than committing all the resources to find an investor. So I hate when startups do patenting before they have really made the final prototype, because it's just waste of money. Because you cannot sell the patent just itself. No one's going to buy a patent. What companies or investors might buy, they'll buy the team, they'll buy the ready technology and the product which has patent. Without the first two, no one's interested in patent, and international patenting is expensive. So you have to understand that. And another one is also learn from experience. Some startups go to Kickstarter with just nice pictures, or maybe proof of concept, that's something that proved the work, but it's not a final prototype. Which means after completing successfully Kickstarter, they'll have to develop the prototype, which takes, I don't know, half a year, and then spend half a year for manufacturing this prototype, or I mean mass production, which means leaves no time, absolutely no time to deliver the promise that you made on a startup, on a Kickstarter, where you promised to deliver prototypes within 6 years, or sorry, where you promised to deliver product within 6 months. So it's not possible. Please don't do that. Just listen, don't do this mistake. And maybe a little bit about EnCata, just a slide. We're now growing internationally. We are opening office in Boston. We're opening a sales office in Prague. We have our partners in Oman, in Israel, and in Baltic states. So the center is in Minsk, and we're proud about it, and we're proud that we're unique on the international arena. And there's one thing I wanted to add, perhaps the last thing, my favorite slide. It's a joke for those who are not from Minsk, but we're looking for technologies, we're looking for talented teams, and we're looking for talented engineers. Thank you.